Austin Kennedy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries, man. You have me intrigued. So I didn't really know a lot about you when we first connected, but it looks like you're working on a bill that has to do with taxation or something. So why don't you give me
Yeah.
the quick TLDR, man? What are you working on?
So a couple years, I work a lot of overtime. So a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I wrote a bill that I've been trying to get passed, which maybe we're getting there on it. But my thing was no taxation on overtime. Novel idea when I came up with it. But But basically, my idea was the employee shouldn't pay overtime taxes, the employer shouldn't pay overtime taxes, and that's not just federal income tax, that's Social Security and Medicare, everything, the whole nine yards. And the simple aspect of that is for every dollar that the employee is paying in taxes, the company is having to pay between a dollar and a half, a dollar 75, somewhere like that. So you're missing out on all this money that they're giving to the government, plus then on your end, you're getting taxed too. And so, especially for those overtime hours, in an inflation crisis, increasing productivity is a way that you can help people out on that end. And so, making those overtime hours cheaper for the employer to pay and more beneficial for the employee is like, I mean, that's your golden ticket to getting a little bit more production, helping people on the bottom line, the company wise and the employer wise. And so, me working with that, trying to get other organizations or politicians on board is kind of where I ran into the thing that you were talking about with ANCAP Air, which brought us together. And so my thing, and I've talked to a couple politicians, and I know Trump has obviously mentioned the no tax on overtime thing. And there's a bill that's been submitted to Congress about it, and we can talk about that. Um, that I mean, it's no tax on overtime for the employee, but it doesn't go far enough. You know, it's not the no faggot taxes. It's not the uh, it's just the uh, federal income tax, which
Federal income tax, right.
yeah, it's helpful, but that's not the bulk of the taxes that you're actually paying. The bulk of the taxes that you're paying is Social Security and Medicare as the employee. So it helps the employee a little bit, but not a lot, and it doesn't help the companies at all. And so that's kind of what I've been working on. That's my pin post on X is actually a call out to the person who wrote that one because I think it's good, but I think it could be better.
Got it. So, have you done any analysis on what the impacts would be? Because it seems to me like there's a multivariate equation here. Anytime you start talking about tax code, the federal receipts, like how much is being collected, there's a lot of aspects to think through. So, have you done any of that? And if so, what have you come up with?
So some, and I know when Trump first mentioned it at that rally, you had a lot of economists saying this is going to destroy federal tax receipts and whatnot. And the argument I made to them, which is a very Misesian argument, is like actually calculating the impact is nearly impossible. You can say that it's gonna do this amount of number, but it's nearly impossible to actually calculate that number because you have to account for every increase in production. You have to account for the increase in spending that individuals are gonna do or saving that they're gonna do. And it's like once you add in 3 million variables that you have to add in to actually get a real answer, do you know what's going to happen? No. Um, but but that's where you come into the actual principles of people should be not punished for working; they should be rewarded. And working over 40 hours, if they're going to pay time and a half, you should be getting as much of that as possible.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and there's no precise way to calculate what the total impact is going to
Yeah,
be. I just thought from some basic metrics, like I don't even know, how many dollars per year are extracted in overtime taxes because OT for non-exempt workers is time and a half pay. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's the requirement. So it's at a higher there's a higher tax impact for those dollars. But I wonder, right? Because people that are non-exempt typically don't pay any federal income taxes. As a matter of fact, most people don't pay any federal income
Yeah.
taxes. The vast majority of Americans, when all is said and done, yeah, sure, they loan the taxes that are
Yeah. Yeah.
extracted from their paychecks to the government, interest free for a year, but basically get it back at tax filing time. There's very few people in America that actually pay income taxes, and so from a total receipt standpoint, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a whole lot. Um, uh,
The big thing is, yeah, I mean, for some people it is. The big thing is actually the employer side, because that's where I mean, that's where most of your actual taxes that you do pay are, is you as the employee paying your 6.2% Social Security, and I think it's 1.45% Medicare, and then the employer matches that, and that's like your biggest chunk that comes out of your paycheck. When I do math on my paycheck, it's about 20% goes to taxes, and then so if you take my overtime hours and subtract the federal income tax from it, it saves me like maybe 4%. So it's like, yeah, nice 4%, but I could add 4% to my 401k extra if I wanted, but it's not the nearly 20% that it could be if you had the whole deal. But yeah, I think I'm trying to remember when it happened, what the federal tax receipts that they estimated would be lost. And it was in the billions of dollars, but it wasn't, I mean, it's like, you know, we're spending 8-9 billion dollars a day. So you're talking about probably less than, a month or a couple months worth of spending. Whereas the economic bonus from that could be about the same, a little bit less, or a lot more. It's not some that part of it is definitely just anyone who's asked. And I think I told some economist lady on X this, and she blocked me. But I was like, any estimate you're as any estimate you're giving is a shot in the dark. So you can claim to be some expert, but you can't model it.
Yeah, so it seems like it's pretty small impact because I was thinking about all the different factors. Obviously, tax receipts are important. If the federal government is not receiving tax income, then as you and I know, that they've got to borrow and print it,
Yep.
right? And that does
Yep.
not have a neutral impact to not, I mean, it's actually a regressive impact,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
because the lowest income earners are the ones that are most disproportionately affected by increases in inflation. So that's something to consider. I sort of worry
Yeah.
about. But then you wonder, like, well, is it offset by companies having a lower tax burden, therefore, right? Like they can lower cost of goods. Like it feels like a fairly complex equation, but it also, as I think about it, probably doesn't impact a whole lot. So my question to you is like, why? Like why is this important?
So, well, it doesn't impact as much as things are, but if you imagine a world where it's cheaper for companies, or the same for companies to pay overtime that it is for regular hours, you take people who are working two or three jobs, they don't have to because their companies offer overtime. They can make more in less time. And so the way that society might change with a major change like that, where people may not be taking, because everything is, you've got your disutility of labor. And so as you work longer hours, unless you're getting paid more, you start to go, okay, I'd rather have some rest than work another hour. And so if you increase that benefit, it could have society changing things. And so, yeah, like as it stands now, you may look at it and say the benefits of the pros or the cons are not that big, but it's something small that could have societal impact that changes it, where it actually does become this major either source of income for people, which obviously is going to increase how much money they spend or save. Um, and you know, you've got you've got different factors where it's like, who knows, it could get rid of the salaried employee aspect altogether, um, because a lot of people might go, right now they like the salary because they're not going to work more than 40 hours a week. But if they could make a whole bunch extra money, a couple $1,000s extra a year, just working the overtime, they might ask to stay to be hourly instead of salary. So it could change a lot of things, even though it is kind of your little like it's sneaky now. It's little. It's not a huge thing, but it could eventually be with the impact that it has.
Got it. So you're looking at this kind of like the camel under the nose of the camel under the tent, like just sort of
Yeah.
sneak something in, keep trying to push back
Well,
the
and I mean, I think this is the other thing. The real sneak in thing is at least the way that I had written the bill was the employee could opt in or out on their Social Security contributions. So if they wanted to pay Social Security still, they could on their overtime hours. If they didn't want to, they didn't have to. That is absolutely sneaking something in because that gives a framework to changing how Social Security works too, where there's at least some opt out option that exists, and that can lead to other things as well.
Got it. You're trying to do like the first, like set a precedent. Like, like,
Yeah,
oh, I can opt out of this tiny. You're kind of
yeah,
doing what government does in reverse, like where it's like with when they instituted the income tax.
hmm,
It was like, oh, it's only the ultra rich. Don't
yep,
worry about it. And then eventually we all get fucked. Like that's kind of
yeah,
so you're trying to do that in reverse, do a little
yep,
jujitsu.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think the other thing is it is a policy that now, I mean, pre-Trump mentioning it, it's absolutely a policy that I could pitch to any side of the political aisle, and I think people will understand it and agree with it. Once he gets involved with that, obviously it gets a little bit harder because then you've got the people that just can't, they can't agree with him on it and anything, even if it's good. But that's its own thing. That's his deal.
Yeah, that's a
But yeah,
wild thing to watch, man. Is like people arguing against their self-interest out of
yep,
team loyalty, right? Because you look at this, and I kind of pulled up the data. It looks like 55.6 of workers are paid hourly, right? So they'd be subject. So almost half of these folks, and it's typically the hourly workers that are paid the least. So we're talking about the lower income earners who should, care deeply. The ones that, during election cycles care so much about the poor and the
yeah,
downtrodden. But if it's, the wrong dude, that's on the
yeah.
other team that's
Well,
giving them something positive. Like they're like, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
yeah, yeah. But that is your in for argumentation too, because when they're saying people are having to work two or three jobs, it's like, oh, like what if I have a solution for that? You can work one job, you can get your more than 40 hours, you're guaranteed your healthcare benefits and stuff. You don't have to work longer hours because the hours you are working are worth more. And it's like your main job is probably going to be paying the most, and then your side jobs are probably paying a little bit less. So like if you have a career and then you're having to work at a restaurant and your off times, I mean, hopefully you're making more at your career. Otherwise, you should just work at the restaurant full time. But um, so it's like cutting off those jobs for you and working more at your main job is more beneficial for the employee. But as we mentioned earlier, that's a consequence for those other kind of industries where you do have a lot of people working a second job. Those are going to shrink, and so you know, but the benefit there is they may start having to pay more because they have to attract
Exactly,
employees. So it's
exactly.
just
Yeah.
that's why I mean, and this goes back to actually calculating this is so hard because every one variable change changes 10 others, and it's you're chasing every cockroach that runs out of the sewer.
A very apropos metaphor. So have you had any success? Like has anybody taken this on to sponsor it? Like where are we at with that?
So I've talked to a couple of politician teams and haven't really gotten too far. I've talked to my local reps team, Dave Schweikert. Staffers consistently miss meetings, so you don't get very far. I've talked to Thomas Massey's office a little bit. Still same kind of deal. Eventually, they either they get 100 emails and they miss your reply or whatever. I had a meeting with Kirsten Cinema's team, um, their local team, because I'm in Arizona. So I had a meeting with them, and they were like, "We'll push it up to the federal policy people." Nothing, nothing there. I'm trying to think. There's maybe one or two other politicians that I've run into, but I had seen that this is that pinned tweet is Ross Fulcher from Idaho's first district did propose just the overtime tax bill, which I commend him for. But I did post this thing and tried to get a couple people to call into the office and just give their opinion that they think it doesn't go far enough, and so hopefully, I know they did their budgeting thing, and so they'll start running these bills through committee and whatnot. So we'll see what happens with it when it gets to committee, and maybe we'll get some amendments that make it as good as it can be, and it'll get passed. Obviously, it's something that the administration and Congress wants to do. So I think there's a good chance that something gets done. But obviously, there's two methods. You either do it the best way, or you do it the like mediocre way. And right now, they're kind of doing it the less than ideal way. So yeah, I mean, I think hopefully once it's in committees and whatnot, we can get people to contact their reps and try to push for amendments or adjustments to the bill.
Got it. So what else are you working on, man? Like it seems like you've dropped enough keywords to let me know that you're my people, man. Like
Yeah.
you're thinking about things very similarly, which I'm
Yeah.
assuming why you wanted to be on the pod. So what else are you thinking about or working on?
So actually, I'm a writer too. So I've got a fiction novel that I have finished. Right now, I'm trying to find a literary agent to see if I can do traditional publishing, but if not, I will self-publish, hopefully sometime this year if I don't find an agent. If I find an agent that could push it off or it could speed it up. So same kind of deal. I write the thing that I tell agents when I'm contacting them is I write novels that get people to think deep about topics, and it is very much not always necessarily in your face political, um, but just kind of moral questions that need to be answered, and how can you tell a story to get people to think about those topics, and Ayn Rand is obviously like a great example of that. Same with Robert Heinlein, um,
That's a
because
Snowpiercer guy, right?
no, well, that could have been. He did. He did Starship Troopers and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Was some. It's possible he did Snowpiercer. I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. I think there was yeah. I gotta look this up now. This is driving me nuts.
I mean, I think that person was
Oh
because I
no,
know that.
that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm totally
Yeah.
off. Never mind. Ignore me. I'm an idiot.
But yeah. So obviously both of them are libertarian theory, but they did really good jobs at telling good stories that were good stories on their own, and then they exemplified great ideas in the same sense. And so, I like the storytelling aspect of it more than I like the writing aspect of it. But I do think um, that our culture is missing a lot of good stories. We get a lot of rinse and repeat stories, and sometimes there are good morality or philosophy stories. It's just, especially in our sphere, it is much decreased, obviously from where we were with some of the great writers in the libertarian space.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is just the fact that it comes down to archetypes, right? If you're Jungian, like we have this certain set of archetypes and we have these certain set of narratives. that have evolved over time. We have the hero's journey, and we have like there's certain motifs that emerge and get rinsed and repeated with different characters, and that seems to be most of what writing is these days. Well, writing and
Yeah.
screenplay, it seems to be like this. We have this. It's almost like a box of crayons. You have these archetypes that are in the box of
Yep.
crayons, and you have this sort of story arc, and you kind of just swap these characters in and
Yeah.
out. The most obvious example to me was that traditional hero's journey around Star Wars, right? So you had Luke Skywalker, and then guess what? They rebooted it and it basically turned him
Yeah.
into a female, and then but
Yeah.
the story is the same, like it's the
Yeah.
exact same, and
Yeah.
I think that we see this a lot, generally in the literary and in the film world.
Yeah, you gotta be paint and not crayons. Because paint you can mix colors, you can make new colors, but crayons you're stuck. You're stuck with what's in the box. But yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. Which, and I mean, it works, and sometimes it can be done well. You can get a good crayon drawing, um, but the longer you go, the less you have to choose from, and the less variation you get. And it is important to tell new and unique stories. And probably some of the reason why it's decreased is because people do absolutely read less um, than they used to because of social media and the internet and technology.
Attention
But
spans that are TikTok
yeah,
long.
so and I mean, even me, like I'll read physical books, but for the most part, it's audiobooks while I work and stuff like that. Um, and when I do read, I still like to have the audiobook too, so I can listen to the audiobook while I read. It helps me read faster, and helps me retain the information a little bit better as well. So, but um, yeah, I mean, until you can just upload a whole book to your brain in an instant, you kind
Shout
of
out
you kind of have
Elon,
to work.
it's coming.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah.
some Neuralink.
Yeah, no, and it wouldn't be that. Well, I always so with the AI and Neuralink, I always think about this kind of stuff, which I think is funny because people will ask me like, if you're writing and AI can just basically do what you do, why would anybody read your why would anybody read your stuff, or why would anybody look at your art? And I mean, the funny thing about it is that like I see a future where you're gonna have a book, and in the front of the book, it's gonna say this book was written by a human being, AI was not used, and it's like people will buy that book just because it's written by a person. Some people won't buy it because it's written by a person because AI might tell better stories. But it is funny to think about. But I see it now with the guy who did my cover art. Um, his name is Vandal Art, and he, him and the kind of the art people that he surrounds himself, they're obviously, they don't like the AI art, but what I see from it is like he's built this pretty big community of people that all kind of go, no, I like this because a person made it. AI could easily have made this in a couple seconds, but the fact that a person made it, it's your like your antique furniture or your handmade leather shoes.
Artisan, handcrafted.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so that'll just move into the technology space just the same.
Boy, I don't. I'm skeptical of AI's ability to generate real art that people want, whether that be literary or physical or whatever type of media it is. Like I think you can have some directed stuff that's interesting. There's have you seen the Doopy Doo account?
No.
That dude makes the craziest music videos that look photorealistic. Like
With
it'll be
AI.
just the wildest things that are clearly AI generated. And that's interesting. That's something that's like a novelty. But I don't think when people are actually looking to consume music, right? Like there's something missing. And maybe it's because I'm
Yeah.
kind of a hippie dude, and I've been a big fan of Rick Rubin for a long time, and I've loved his book, The Creative Act, and how like spiritual he is about the creative process. Like
Yeah.
his view is like we're kind of like vessels. Like you're sort of like you're letting the universe work through you, right? Like you sort of
Yep.
catch this wave, and I listen to him. He's got credibility to me because he's produced some of the most insane records of all time. He's worked with everybody, right? So he's seen the process time and time
Yeah.
again. And sometimes he works with an artist he talks about, and it doesn't happen. The thing just doesn't happen. It wasn't the right time, or it wasn't like whatever is off, and he just moves on. He's like, cool, I'm dropping this project and moving on. But sometimes he's like, it's just like lightning in the bottle, and it's
Yep.
easy, and like you're sitting in a room and you're working with these artists and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden nothing's changed, but it's happening, right? He's really kind of woo woo about the whole thing, and I'm really believing it.
Yeah.
There's something weird there, man, where I don't think that connection exists. I don't think a computer and group of language models is going to spit out
No, it doesn't.
poetry. Yeah, there's
It
something missing.
it doesn't have soul. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's missing the soul, and it's like, I mean, this is something where, because I will use the AI to help me edit, um, and I have no problem like being modified it, but it can't. The novel ideas it comes with are not good, and but the bigger thing is that it doesn't understand, like it will not, well, I can't say it will never, but it doesn't understand right now like human emotions. Like it doesn't understand what might give a person goosebumps. It doesn't understand what might make a person cry, what makes a person hurt. It might understand why people do that and the reasons, but the feelings are not there, and they aren't, they're not going to be there anytime soon necessarily. And it's like, yeah, you do have to be human to understand certain things, at least now. Um, if that changes in the future, that might be pretty scary, but but at least now,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where you get into the realm of like AGI and ASI. Like those two things, like who the hell knows what's possible with that? And
yeah,
maybe someday. But at that point, you'd almost feel like the machines are consciousness. They're able to have experiences. They're able to, whatever. If there's a way to, reproduce feelings and emotions, like I don't know if this is possible. I'm in tech and I have no clue whether this is
yeah,
to happen. I hold out the possibility, but I guess I'm skeptical.
yeah.
Like it's just
Happens.
seeing the problems with AI. Everyone is acting like this is a miracle, and like no, this is ultimately kind of like a bag of tricks that's
Yeah,
happening to fool you into thinking that this is you're interacting with something that has some sort of intelligence, and it's not
yeah,
intelligence. It's really kind of dumb under the covers if you know what's going on.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that I would say, because I started using it pretty early on, and it's like, oh, this is unique, but it's actually not. It's not that. It like where you see where the more you use it, the facade starts to fall off, and then you go, oh, like I see the problems here, and then they create their new version. You're like, oh, there's more cool things, but the more you use it, you start to see that like, well,
Yeah.
this is, yeah, and so then that just continues. This is like when the newest version of Grok came out, like you played around with it quite a bit. Um, tried to get it to do some basic things from coding to some other stuff. But it's like, yeah, more I've used it, like especially yesterday, I was using it for something I'm working on, and man, like towards the end of the day, I'm just like, this thing is stupid. It's just absolutely stupid, and and so I just closed it out, and I'm like, I can figure out a better way to do this than and I did. So
Have you seen Alex O'Connor's analysis of ChatGPT and AIs with respect to wine? And so here's a great thing for everyone to try. Tell your favorite generative AI model to give you a photorealistic image of a glass of wine that is overflowing, it's full. It can't do it.
no,
Literally cannot
yeah,
do it.
because yeah,
Because all of the images that it's trained off of have been half full, quarter full. So it literally, and you can argue with it, and you can respond. You say, actually, no, that's only half full. I want you to have it overflowing off the top.
yeah,
And like, no, there's no way you can get it to do it. And so there
yeah,
are edges, there are boundaries to this. And I think, like you said, if you really start playing with it, and there's a bunch of different ways too. You can,
yeah,
through argumentation and reasoning, you can get it into a corner where it realizes that it's wrong,
yeah.
but it can't correct itself,
Well, that
right?
was
Like it,
the how many R's are in the word strawberry, and it
I
would
didn't
like,
see that one. What's that one?
oh, so this one was, I mean, I think they've fixed it now, but there was this whole thing. You would ask it how many R's are in strawberry, and it would never get it. It would like the double R would throw it off, and so it just thought that there was two. And you could have it spell it out one by one, and it would be like it would say, "Oh yeah, there's actually three R's in strawberry," and then you would ask it again, and it would be like, "There's only two R's in strawberry." And so, it's just, and it's like a weird thing. And obviously somebody went through and found that, but yeah, there is unique little things where you're just like, oh, you're kind of dumb.
Yeah, yeah. But I get people's like panic about it, and I
Yeah,
think there's been sufficient transformation in the technology to a point where it's just it's night and day. Remember, like for example, Amazon's stupid Alexa thing, like it was just dumb as shit. Like people
yeah,
used it basically to set a timer in their kitchen, and that's about it. There was no intelligence to it. You couldn't have a
yeah,
conversation. And then you have the new LLM models where you can actually have a conversation, understands context, and like it's a huge advancement. And the image generation is mind blowing. Like we wouldn't have been able to even understand that this is even possible a few years ago. And so I get why people are looking at this, and probably rightly so. That okay, if this has changed this much in this short period of time, what's it going to look like in 10 years, and 15 years, and 20 years? And that's honest. That's a legitimate question, honestly.
yeah. Well, and I mean, and well, I guess while we're on that, I do think you should definitely read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress from Heinlein, because that one is kind of it. I think they're on the Mars, or they're on the moon, and they basically have this AI that is helping them, and it's pretty interesting because it was written in like the '60s, and then you're like, man, how did this guy know? But
Right.
no, with that, I with the AI stuff and where it goes, like I've always said that like our op no matter really it comes down to who ends up being in charge of it, if it's like an AGI kind of situation. And I just always said, like, our two final solutions are either The Matrix or Wall-E, and neither one of those is really great. They're both actually pretty bad. So so it's like, you know,
Well, I
um
don't know, man. I think there's a third option. I think that there's going to be, to your point about the artisan, the handcrafted. I think there's going to be a movement to
yeah,
disconnect from technology too. I think there's going
yeah,
to be a bunch of people that are going to get a bunch of acreage off the grid, self-sustaining, and try to unplug as much as possible. It's almost like the technological version of like the trad wife movement, right? There's going to be a whole group of
yeah,
folks that
yeah.
that's what they're going to
No,
want to do.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you're gonna have your splinter group, but where the majority of society ends up, which is like, yeah, hopefully you don't have to be a part of it if you don't want to, which is, you know, the goal, obviously. If you're forced to be a fat person in a wheelchair floating in space, it's not great. And if you're forced to be plugged into a computer, it's not great. But yeah, if and I do think that, and I do encourage that people to kind of divest a little bit from the system, because not relying on it is a good thing. And the more people that do that, I think the more beneficial it is for yourself, as far as like your self-sufficiency and your independence, but also for society, because it pulls stresses off of, you know, the foundation of everything to begin with.
What do you mean it pulls stresses off the foundation? I'm not sure I understand what you
So
mean.
like as far as like the foundation of social cohesion or social order or whatnot, like the if everybody kind of takes a step back, they get more self-reliant, self-sufficient, the social stresses that we have, which is like, even just population density could be a social stressor. Too many people in an area, you're going to have more conflict than you have in a rural area. So the more people that choose to, and that's just one avenue, right? That choose to kind of get a little bit further away, you get a little bit less stress on maybe not the system, but the social order or whatnot. But you also have, yeah, people who are um, needing the government for something. If they don't need the government for something, that takes it off. But the other aspect of that is, if you're working, you're feeding into the system through taxes. If you're more self-reliant and work less, you may be doing more work on your own, but it goes more for you, and it's not necessarily feeding in at the same rate. Um, So
Got it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I want to ask an important question: Is do you what issues do you see on the horizon relating to the sort of shift from manual labor, since we're talking about overtime workers, the blue collar jobs, the manual labor type of jobs, having those replaced with Elon's Tesla bots
yes,
that are AGI enabled, right? Like can just sort of manufacture everything, including themselves, right?
yeah,
They can reprogram themselves. Like I think this is something that's coming fairly soon, and I think it's going to impact things a lot. Do you think about that a lot, and do you think
I
about
I
the ramifications?
yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's always man, what was it that I was? Oh, I think I watched that movie Subservience with Megan Fox, where like they fire everyone at the work site except for the main character because there has to be a human on site to be the foreman. Um, so there are aspects like that. Like when there was the dock worker strike um, on the East Coast, they didn't want to be replaced by automation, but at the port of LA, like they've been heavily replaced by automation. But a lot of those people still have, um, some of those people still have their jobs. They have to do a lot less work. They're getting paid the same or more. But some people had to go and leave and find new careers. And I think that as long as the economy tends towards efficiency, that's a good thing. If it and that people can find the jobs, but they're going to have to find the jobs in where they as an individual are most efficient towards like the division of labor. But people don't necessarily, people resist against it because they don't want to have to be retrained. And, but this creates problems. Like one thing that I had learned, in an economics class was like the sugar subsidies in the US are insane. It's like billions of dollars a year for a small amount of employees just so that they don't lose their jobs. And I think the math works out where like they could give every employee a PhD and pay their salary for like decades and retrain them in something else versus keeping the sugar industry the way we have it. And so it's like you end up having the stupid money pit because some people don't want to have to switch career paths. And it's like, it would be better just to pay to retrain these people. I don't care. Pay their salary for a year while they're in school. 4 years while they're in school would still be better than the amount of tax dollars we're spending. And the only result that the American people see is like more expensive sugar because it's made in the US.
Well, kind of. That's a complicated one too, because like
Yeah.
the reason we have sugar subsidies is because we have corn subsidies,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because the sugar industry, I mean, they were producing at market rate the sugar cane that went into everything that we ate, including sodas. And then guess
Yeah.
what? The government came in and heavily subsidized corn, and that's why we saw the explosion in the ethanol
Yep.
industry.
Yep.
Because like now it's so fucking cheap, we got to do something with it, and so they have
It's it's
mandated,
yeah.
ethanol amounts in
The
gasoline
the
now.
corn the corn is so cheap that like I mean I don't know if you know this. Like I've known people who are farmers that like they just get rid of their crop because they get paid more just to destroy it than to like actually put it on the market. And it's like isn't that an obvious trigger that you should be planting something else? Like I mean obviously it's not for them. It is the most beneficial for the farmer, but the government, the farm policy is so insane.
Right.
And
And so
that
now the
yeah.
sugar industry's got to be like, all
Yeah.
right, well, now we need our stuff. And this is like the never ending shell game of government, right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about, you think that you can tinker and centrally plan the economy, but you can't. There's too many second order effects that you're not
Yeah. You
considering,
can't
and it's just impossible.
Yeah, you can't even do it once. Like I
Right.
said,
Right.
it's like it's literally chasing the cockroaches that come out of the sewers because you do it. You open the manhole a little bit and three crawl out, and it's like you open it a lot and millions crawl out. So it's like yeah, you do it once and you're chasing things forever to try and fix it. And I mean, and that is something that I would like more people to understand, but I get it can be complicated to explain. Um,
Yeah, and most people, they're not econ dorks
yeah,
like us, and they're not going to
yeah,
think about it thoroughly. But the reason I asked this question, I got a little bit sidetracked, but my question is more towards the Wally side of things. Like, do you think that things becoming easier for us as a species is, fraught with peril, or do you think it's a good thing generally?
No, no, I don't. I mean, it's both. I don't think it's a good thing, like in the Wally sense, right? Like people. That's why I said they're both bad. Being either a slave or being able to not do anything. It's like it's super important to do things. It's super important to have struggle. It's super important to have difficulty in your life. And like you see, I mean, that was something uh, when I was at university that Um, I was taking a Russian culture class, and one of the first days, like the teacher brought up, it's like, well, when maybe not so much now, but years past, like the suicide rate in Russia is super low, especially under the Soviet Union, super low. And it's like you would expect that it would be super high, but it's like something about the it. I mean, I think it does come down a lot to purpose. Whereas like in America, sometimes things are too easy, and it it's like you don't get the satisfaction of accomplishing something difficult, which is super important for people. Um, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
dude.
you
I,
do
I
need
think you nailed it. Hit the nail on the head, which is, if you look at the data around countries that are impoverished, we're talking developing nations, third world countries, their rates of depression and anxiety are way lower than the West. It seems like as
yep,
countries become very rich, their mental health seriously, seriously declines. There's something endemic in being a human being that needs something. It's like a sled dog needing to pull something. There's you have to have a struggle,
yeah,
and there has to be meaning in what you're doing. Otherwise, you just sort of descend into nihilism
yep,
and mental health issues. I think that's a real risk, and that's one of the things I worry most about the technological revolution that's coming in manufacturing, because a
yeah,
lot of these struggle jobs, these bricklayers, you know, really, really, hard jobs to do, being taken over by robots is probably gonna hurt us as a society, because we're already falling apart now. We're already
yeah.
we're suffering from a lack of privation in America, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I mean and that's why that's another aspect, like I said, like getting off grid and being self-reliant, because that's something where um even if your job is like purposeless and menial, just because you have to have a job because of technical advancement, and it's the same kind of deal, right? They have to have a human on site and a robot's doing everything. You're going to be bored, you're going to be, feel like you aren't needed, not necessary. But if you can at least find something that you choose to do outside of that, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel like you can accomplish something difficult, like at least that's something that you still have. And um, so yeah, that's a good aspect where, if we look at it from a not bad perspective, the technological advancement might free you up to do something you wouldn't have normally done otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, it's that whole, the candle makers are pissed off because the light bulb was invented, but guess
Yeah.
we're all better off for the light bulb.
Yeah.
Houses aren't
Yeah.
burning down, and
Yeah.
the whole deal.
Hmm.
But people don't often think of it that way. I think people look at jobs as a good in and of itself, like as if just digging a ditch and filling it back up
Yeah.
again is somehow, as long as you're getting paid for it, is somehow productive. And like they miss
Yeah.
the bigger picture, which is the entire point is to increase productivity,
Yep.
to have us divvy up, so division of labor, essentially, right? Like we're dividing and conquering, and I'm gonna work over here, and this is gonna provide this to the sector, and then I'm gonna work over here, and we're all working together and exchanging and trading to make sure everyone's needs are met in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And I think people
Yeah.
zoom out, because if it's like it's my job, oh, now that's like that's the worst thing in the world. If my job is being eliminated due to things that are causing productivity increases, nobody likes that story, because they got kids to feed and they got resources they need to acquire. It's a very hard sell, I think,
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like a nowhere road. People will even admit to it, like in a general sense, but if it comes down to you, it's like, well, not my job.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and yeah, that it is. It's like obviously, I mean, like nobody wants to be the one that gets laid off. That makes perfect sense. And especially if it's like what you're specialized in is no longer needed. Like you do have to completely respecialize, and that's like that is difficult, and it's a tough um, it's a tough problem to deal with because there isn't like a one size fits all solution for that. I think, and you have like a pride thing too, where somebody doesn't want to, even if they are planning to respecialize in something else, like they don't want to step down and do something that's lower just in the meantime either. And so it does become this kind of deal where that can make you feel more defeated than anything.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. And I also see risks around continual concentration of wealth. I think that you've seen what's happened over the last 20, 30 years, and you've got more and more money concentrating into a smaller group of hands, right? And some of it's driven by technology, clearly. That scales.
yeah,
Like, for example, if you're a massage therapist, you can see what, 6 people a day, seven tops. You're maxed out. Like, but software where you can get a billion users, right? That's infinitely scalable.
yeah,
So you sort of see a couple of things. Number one, it is sort of that money aggregating by virtue of technology, and also in the hands of really smart people that are hedge fund managers, and that would just happen to be blessed with a high IQ and a brain that works better than somebody else's. They just in the past, when you were plowing the field next to your neighbors, your IQ differential didn't matter that much. Today it matters like a lot, and
yeah,
now you overlay that with the problem of government, right, which is picking winners and losers and tilting the playing field. Now you have these really smart people that are have the ring of power, as Tolkien put it, of government at their disposal to rig the game in their favor. I don't see, a bottom to this hole, man. Like, I think it's going to
yeah,
continue to get worse. And the more we automate away some of these jobs, the more productivity that's going to be achieved, more wealth is going to be created. Now, more wealth is going to end up in those very, very wealthy people's
yeah.
pockets, which is going to
Yep.
be destabilizing. Like, it's not a moral judgment, but it really tends to destabilize societies when they come imbalanced like that.
Yeah, I mean it's that's the like uh the whole thing that they always talk about around like monogamy, for example, is like if a bunch of men can't find women to marry,
Yeah.
you have a bunch of men that are willing to overthrow the government, and it's the same kind of thing. It's if you have a bunch of people that can't get any, they have no means to get resources. It's like, well, they have nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah, and society becomes violent is
Hmm.
really the outcome, and so
Yep.
that's a big concern for me, and we already see this with a lot of the rage baiting that goes on with any political campaign cycle, and it's a weird spot because it feels like nobody sees it because you're on one of two sides typically. If you're like, let's say you're a Democrat, then you're going to be prone to the legitimate heartrending stories about how this person has it really bad, and we have to take care of these people, and it's not fair, right, that this person has this, and this other group over here, these fat cats that they're rich, and they don't need all this wealth. Like, I mean, that's a legitimate complaint. The differential between these poor people and these rich people, like, that's really unfair, particularly because IQ is heritable mostly. You didn't choose to be smart, right? Like, you just got lucky, and so
Yeah.
it's easy to stoke envy in this group of people. And on the flip side, then you have the reflexive Republicans who are like, no, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I earned every penny. Meanwhile, we know these corporations
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
rigging this system. And so the complaints that the left has are largely dismissed by the right. And then it just turns into this game of tribalism where it's nothing but warring factions. And we've completely disconnected ourselves from philosophy or anything, empirical. And we've just turned into, base, like you said, like, we're pissed because the top guys are getting all the women and we can't get one, so we're gonna attack him. That seems like the program that runs in people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it is the program that runs in people, and to your point, this is something that I've always said is like, if you read the Communist Manifesto and go, "Oh yeah, like he's looking at problems in society, he's diagnosing them correctly, but then when he gets to his solutions, they're all wrong." It's like if you understand that, you can go and talk to a leftist or a communist and approach it from that direction, actually have a conversation with them. because you can at least like if you aren't even willing to admit that a problem exists, then you can't have a productive conversation. But if you can level with them on what the problem is, and then say, well, I just think that this is actually the way to fix it instead of that. Like I think that is important, and so to your point of like you actually do have um, to at least see the problems for what they are in society, whether it's wealth inequality or government interference with companies. You have to look at it and at least be able to say like, well, here's the issues with those things. And oh, you think the issue's actually this? Well, let me see why do you think that, and I'll tell you why I think this. And you can make progress. I mean, I've made progress with people that way.
Yeah, you can. Society at large tends not to, though. They don't think of it
Yeah.
that way. I love, and God, I'm so redundant. I say it all the time, but one of my favorite quotes is Michael Malice, where he says, "Most people don't evaluate things through a true and false filter.
Yeah.
They evaluate things through an us/them filter." And I think that's what we come down to, because like you and I, we understand, for example, that inflation is driven by the government printing and borrowing dollars, right? And that devalues the currency that's in circulation and makes everybody poorer. But if you talk to it's a complicated thing to understand and explain to somebody. What does the M2 money supply mean? What are you
Yeah.
fucking talking about? Whereas the alternate explanation, even though it's wrong, meaning it's corporate greed, right? Why are prices going up? Because
Yeah.
corporate greed, these baddies are raising your prices to rip you off. Like that is an easy, emotional argument for people
Yeah.
to absorb, right? And so I don't see people changing in this regard, man. Like I think everybody on both sides, if you're a Democrat or Republican, it's all about team loyalty and talking points that are delivered from the quote unquote thought leaders, which, in my view, they're the same people. I
Yeah.
think this is all pro wrestling, where you have the good guys and the heels, but you
Yeah.
have Vince
Yeah.
McMahon
No, it
behind the
is. It
curtain
is.
pulling all the strings.
Yeah.
But convincing people of that is like almost impossible. For some
Well,
reason, they look at these fucking government people and they know that they suck. Like if you actually ask them in private, like, yeah, they suck, but they're better than the other guys somehow, right? Like the bar is so goddamn low. I'm beside myself that people are still, sort of bought into this system and defend it. And they will defend it. You've been on Twitter. They'll defend it in a really nasty way. Like it reminds me of the possum meme, like keep away from my trash. Like it is the wildest thing to see.
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like on a society scale, you can't you can't convince somebody on X really. You can't convince somebody you don't really know, but like the people you can convince the people that you surround yourselves with, and you can work with those people and kind of and I guess that's kind of this idea with like New Hampshire with the Free State Project and stuff like that, where it's like you can kind of control who's around you and what they think, um, or have those conversations with them. But yeah, it's like me with some person on the street. No, they're set in their ways and they don't have a reason to trust me. But when I develop a relationship with somebody and they go, oh, this person seems to know what they're talking about, and maybe I'm wrong on something and maybe I'm right on something, and having those conversations. But yeah, it's like it's kind of that I don't know if I forget who said it, but proverb where it's like, if you want to change the world, start, changing yourself.
Oh man, that's the whole theme of this
Yeah.
podcast, man. That's like where I started. I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah.
I agree. I think the easier thing to do is point fingers, right? Like all my problems are caused by Elon Musk, or all my problems are my congressman's fault. Like that is an easy answer.
Yeah.
It's like the inflation example. It's like it's just easy. It's an emotional thing that makes you feel good, and you don't have to do anything about it, right? All you have to do is you go and you punch a fucking thing on a ballot, and I voted. You get a sticker, yay! We saved the city, Patrick. Like that. That's the mindset, and it
Yeah.
drives me absolutely bonkers, because what we really need to do is focus on becoming better people. We're going to
Yeah.
have a better society if we focus on self improvement. And God, it is really out of it. It's not in vogue anymore, man. Like self improvement feels like it is. Maybe it's making a comeback, but I see so much of this like. hey, you can be beautiful at any size and healthy at any size. You can be 500
Yeah.
pounds. Go girl. You're slay queen. Like it's like, and it's not just in the physical health perspective too, but it's the bar just seems to be so low right now on what constitutes competency in any domain, or health and taking care of your fitness and mental health. Like it's just it's turned into a little bit of a shit show.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it absolutely has. But I do think that there is a little bit of a turnaround around it. Like I can just, I mean, at least in my sphere, I've got a lot of people doing keto or carnivore, trying to lose weight, trying to get healthy, trying to learn new things. And so I'm starting to see it. And I don't, it's hard to know whether if I'm just seeing it and that's in my sphere, or if I'm seeing it because it's a society-wide thing. But yeah, if you can make the 8 people that are closest to you, um, you and them all get a little bit better, that is going to inspire somebody else to you know be part of the us in in that thinking. They don't want to be the them if everyone's going on runs, or if everybody's eating healthy or in their friend group. It does that social aspect of it absolutely encourages people to make little changes and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think it's a snowball effect. You start getting a critical mass and things start to
Yeah,
improve. And so I encourage everyone to focus on yourself. Stop engaging in pointless Twitter arguments. And then also maybe be better to people online, right? Like everybody seems to go on to, particularly Twitter is terrible about this. You want to go on there because I'm going to change people's mind. I'm going to, and this creeps me out. It gives me the chills thinking of it, convert people. Like I'm going to
yeah,
convert you to whatever, my way of thinking is. And that is such a toxic way to be. And it doesn't help anything. I think people should traditionally go, or should, as a matter of practice, go into a discussion as like, I'm open and curious. Like, what do you actually think about this? This is my perspective, and not try to change somebody's mind. I think we'll get a lot further in terms of understanding each other's point of view, and then breaking down those tribal walls. Because if it's just you and
yeah,
me having a conversation and you say something that I don't agree with, and I stop and I say, hmm, that's interesting. Like I don't see it that way. Like tell me more, right? Like, well, what's your perspective? I think that fosters a different type of conversation than the traditional thing, which is you've poked at my sacred cow. Now I must assault you online, block you, scream at you, tag my friends in. They're gonna dogpile. Like that shit is
yeah,
so
yeah.
toxic, man. It doesn't do anything good.
But the other problem is like, man, like we know obviously some people are intentionally doing it because it's entertainment, right? To just be mean
Sure,
online. But
sure.
the other problem is like there are crazy bot networks that are just like completely designed, and it's like, I mean, I don't know if that's an individual or a state or a company that's trying to drive traffic, or whatever it is. It's like you almost can't um, fully conceptualize it because there's too much you don't know about what's behind the scenes in that aspect, and so that makes it so difficult, to kind of come to a like a personal approach for online engagement.
Yeah, for sure, man. I completely agree with all of that stuff. It makes me wonder how we're even going to be able to tell what's real online, right? Like you said, you don't even. We have these nameless, faceless, avies that got some cartoon or some shit. You
Yeah.
don't know. You don't know what person you're talking. This is not the way human beings have evolved to communicate, and we're sort of in this new space and trying to figure it out. And it feels like we're failing miserably.
I had a moment yesterday. I don't remember what the post was, but I was looking in the comments on the post, and it had like the XAI logo on every comment. And what I thought that meant, because I'd never seen it before, was that they used Grok to formulate their response. Like it was like, oh, X is gonna now show whether a response is AI generated or not, or something like that. And so I'm looking through the comments, and there's all these crazy comments that all have this logo, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, there's not like there's not a single real person. But then I realized that, like, no, that's so I can have AI analyze their comment. And so I was like, I was about to lose it because I was like, is anything real? But then yeah, I realized that that was just me misunderstanding what the little logo was. But it's believable that there could be a comment section with not a single real person commenting on it. And that's, I mean, that's just how do you deal with that is just a question that's beyond me.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out, man. We're all going through this together. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
All right, dude, we're about out of time, man. So why don't you tell folks where they can find you online? You got an
All right.
interesting account.
I am on X at Austin FN Kennedy. And and so that's where, I occasionally post stuff, occasionally repost stuff. But when I get the book rolling and stuff like that, everything will be on there. So I'd be happy to have anyone follow me and stand by.
Awesome, dude. Hey, thanks for the conversation. It was super interesting, man. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a good time.